It took a little bit longer than we anticipated. We welcome you to In the Circle Live After Dark and recap day one of the Major Conference Tournament, or day two of the Major Conference Tournament starting. My name is Victor Anderson. Eric Lopez, we will be talking to him in just a moment. And by a moment, I mean after he gets the post-game press conferences, as BYU just knocked off Houston in the final first-round game of the Big 12 tournament. So BYU will advance to tomorrow's quarterfinal, where they will take on the 3-seed Iowa State. Appreciate everybody for waiting such a long time to get tuned in. We are here, we are live, and we're going to be ready for you for about an hour or so, and then get you nice and rested and ready for tomorrow's action. Now, before we get to all the particulars about the day that took place, and get you all the particulars about our partners, our sponsor, of course, In the Circle on D1 Softball is powered by 643. Visit 643.com to find the latest opportunities nearest you, where you can grow and develop the next generation of female fast pitch athletes, both on and off the field. Again, visit 643.com. And with it being championship week, it's never a bad time to go to the new look D1softball.com. Use promo code NEWLOOK20 to save 20% off any description or any subscription for D1 softball. And we're going to get to that scoreboard in just a few moments. There's some games still going on in the WAC, a very surprising result going on right now in the WAC, which we'll get to in just a moment. Now, this is as Eric and I talked about on the podcast on Monday. By the way, Monday's podcast will be the only traditional In the Circle that you're going to hear this week. So you're going to still see a tweet at about 25 minutes or so saying, good morning, it's Thursday. Listen to Monday's episode. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow night. Oh, yeah. And speaking of Friday night, In the Circle Live, our schedule for the remainder of the week. Now, please note that the times can change. So follow us on our social media at In the Circle SB on Twitter/X and on Facebook to know when we will be going live. All of these times are approximate start times, depending on when the most significant game that's still playing comes to a conclusion. We will wrap things up for you. But you see, Saturday morning, 10 a.m., get your breakfast, get your coffee, lock in with myself and Mr. Lopez, who will be in Oklahoma City covering the Big 12 championship. We're going to be talking all championships, the significance of those championships, teams that are playing their way into the tournament, seeding purposes, the number one overall seed still in play in the SEC. A team who was trying to contend for that suffered a big loss today and may have damaged their chances, but we'll talk about that. Friday night, 10:30 Eastern time, approximately 10 a.m. Saturday morning, and 10:30 Saturday night, where we will recap everything and prepare you for Selection Sunday. Let's get everyone involved. We got people. We got the people chiming in, as we always do. We always appreciate y'all showing us. Fang Nai, hello, good to see you. Glenn, what's going on? Hey, we got our friends on the 1012 podcast checking in. I'm sure they were following the action going on in Oklahoma City. Oh my goodness. You know what? And Glenn, funny you should mention the Ole Miss Florida game, because not everybody would be able to join us on a podcast this evening. If you can see, Finley Traxel was Finley was a little bit tired, saying sorry, won't be joining. Winning is hard. Yes, Finley, you are well-deserved rest for you as Ole Miss takes care of business versus Florida. Now, the Ole Miss Florida game, significant for not just the Gators in terms of their chances of getting a number one national seed. Excuse me. Hold on. This temporary timeout unofficially brought to you by Diet Dr. Pepper. Now, Justin McLeod will be mad at me for saying I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper, but look, If he could drink Dr. Pepper, and here's the thing, I don't drink that much soda, period. So, okay, now that we got going. Oh, we got our people at Seeing Scarlet checking in with us checking in this evening. Good to have y'all following aboard with us. Texas Tech will start off their path trying to win a Big 12 tournament championship on tomorrow. So let's get to some of the notable results that I saw from tonight. First of all, remember all the hype about Northwestern and how people thought they played their way into the tournament after they took 2 out of 3 in Los Angeles versus UCLA? You don't want to follow up that performance by laying an egg versus Purdue. Granted, on their home field, but you lose to Purdue 4-2. It was the Julia Gossage game. Threw 10 strikeouts, hit 2 home runs, knocked in 3 runs. Now, crowd participation. If Northwestern's loss puts them out of the tournament, put a 1 in the chat. If you think Northwestern is still in the tournament in spite of their loss, put a 2 in the chat. Because Northwestern, oh, and Hero brings up an interesting point. Purdue helping rival Indiana potentially make that's a valid point, because the Big Ten tournament, let's get to it. Let's get to it right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's lock in, because the Big Ten tournament, this bracket makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. You have Penn State, who made the tournament last year, was one of the last teams in. They were the 11th seed against a surprising 6-seeded Iowa Hawkeye squad who went through tremendous turmoil. It was announced earlier this week that Renee Gillespie would not be returning back to Iowa as the head coach. Brian Levin, who served as the acting head coach, he left the program, but the Hawkeyes somehow found a way to get a 30-plus win season. Penn State knocks them off in the opening game of the tournament. Indiana then stuns and shuts out Washington 2-0. And remember, last year, if you followed along, it was Indiana's run in the Big Ten tournament that propelled the Hoosiers on the right side of the field of 64. Some normalcy in Game 3 with Michigan holding serve versus Wisconsin. And then, of course, we mentioned Purdue protecting home field versus Northwestern. It marks the first time in the history of the Big Ten tournament that the lower-seeded teams won 3 of the 4 first-round games. Yes, I just said that right. The first time ever a 10 seed, an 11 seed, and a 12 seed all won their opening round games in the Big 10 tournament. So you see the bracket. Penn State takes on Nebraska to start off activities on tomorrow. Then Indiana. Look, everyone says Indiana in, maybe. Now, if Indiana somehow beats UCLA, then yeah, Indiana's going to be in. Michigan with an opportunity to solidify their resume against the Big Ten champion Oregon Ducks. Yes, I know it is May. I know we're just finishing up the first year of this conference alignment, but saying Big Ten regular season champion Oregon Ducks.
That makes a lot of sense.
Say that again, Scott Van Pelt.
That makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, sir. And then you got the finale, Purdue versus Ohio State. If Purdue somehow conjures up more of that magic and stuns Ohio State, I'm not saying Oregon's going to cruise their way to the Big Ten championship on Saturday, but Oregon can handle Michigan. But Ohio State has the most prolific offense in college softball led by Karen Kumar her first year. You look at the numbers that the Buckeye offense had last year, and you compare it to what Coach Kumar has implemented this year, it is night and day. But the matchup I'm looking forward to the most probably is going to be Indiana-UCLA. If Indiana somehow beats the Bruins, that stamps them into the tournament. And to Hero's point in the chat, Purdue possibly helping their rival make the tournament. I don't know. We will have to see if that happens, but that is fascinating theater after day one of the Big Ten tournament. But again, we will have to see if that will continue to play itself out on Thursday, Friday, and then the championship game on Saturday. So that's the landscape of the Big Ten. Let's take a look now what's going on in the SEC. Now, the SEC, we know the SEC will have 14 of the 15 teams in. Missouri lost their opening round game to Ole Miss 1-0. So, yeah, the season will officially be over for Larissa Anderson and her bunch after this week in Georgia. But what I want to share with everyone right now, look at what's going on with Ole Miss. Ole Miss, the 11th seed, they beat Missouri 1-0. And let me bring things up bigger to make it look. So look at Ole Miss. They beat Missouri 1-0. And then they're leading Florida 3-0 late. Florida goes back-to-back, including an absolute bomb from Erickson. Ties it up at 3-3. They go to extra innings. Ole Miss gets a 3 runs of their own, and they hang on and beat Florida 6-3. So instead of having Florida versus Texas in a Titanic clash in the quarterfinals, it's Ole Miss versus Texas in the Manning Invitational. If, of course, you don't know, Arch Manning is a quarterback for Texas, and Eli Manning used to be the quarterback for Ole Miss. But, just for those of y'all who are not focusing on that. That is the third semifinal of the day, the third quarterfinal. Y'all hear me? Third semifinal? Need more Dr. Pepper here. The third quarterfinal, I meant to say. The last quarterfinal is Texas A&M, South Carolina. South Carolina got 2 two-run home runs from Adriana Rhodey, who is now the single-season home run leader in South Carolina history, to beat Alabama 6-2. Alabama, they are going to be in a very precarious position. They got their one win in the SEC tournament versus Auburn 3-2. Now, Alabama's going to have to sit and wait to see if they're going to get one of those final few hosting spots. Eric and I will talk a lot more about that Friday night and definitely Saturday night when we know the broader landscape of which teams are in, which teams won their conference tournaments, and who is seated where. But I want to bring up the top of the bracket where all the fun will start. Oklahoma, the number 1 seed, they will take on LSU. Started their tournament run today with a 5-0 win over Mississippi State. And then, you want to talk about a juicy matchup. Carlin Pickens and Tennessee, Bree Ellis and Arkansas. Bree Ellis with a walk-off grand slam to propel the Razorbacks over Georgia 5-1 earlier this afternoon. In one swing, Bree Ellis set the single-season record for home runs and RBIs in Arkansas. And I said this on the podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again. If Bree Ellis is not the National Player of the Year, there needs to be a full-blown investigation as to what happened. Arkansas had a great graphic, and I'll share it with you when we do our live stream on Friday night, on the numbers that Bree Ellis had put up. And you put Bree Ellis's numbers and you compare them to Jocelyn Allo's numbers. And the similarities between batting average, home runs, RBIs, Wow. RBIs, slugging, insane. So again, National Player of the Year, Bree Ellis. SEC Player of the Year, Bree Ellis. All the honors that Bree Ellis can accumulate, like Thanos and Infinity Stones, Bree Ellis needs to have all of them like this. Like the late Bill Russell had all those championship rings on his thumbs and fingers. Bree Ellis needs to have all those national accolades like this. But the one thing that she wants more than anything is to get Arkansas to the Women's College World Series. They get one step closer thanks to that walk-off grand slam versus Georgia, and they take on Tennessee. The interesting thing about this bracket, I'll share with all of you one more time, is look at the potential semifinal matchups that we could have. We could have LSU versus Arkansas. We could have LSU versus Tennessee. We could have Gasso versus Gasso, Patty versus DJ with Oklahoma versus Arkansas. But on the other side of the bracket, Oklahoma, are you telling me that we could potentially have a super regional rematch to get to the SEC championship game on Friday night? Can you imagine Texas versus Texas A&M running it back after that, what many people have said, the greatest super regional of all time last year in Austin? Hey, Ole Miss and South Carolina will have plenty to say about that. But, just some fascinating things to ponder as well. Hey, if you got any questions for me, any thoughts, any other scores or any other stories that you're following, put them in the chat. We'll share those with you on throughout the show. And again, for those of you who are joining us late, we're going to be going live 2 more times now, likely 3 more times for the rest of the week, going live again Friday night at 10:30-ish. I say ish simply because that, we don't know when the schedule, we don't know when the games are going to be finishing or when we're going to be going on live. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. That is a definite. We know we're going to be going live Saturday at 10 a.m. And then we're going to likely going live Saturday night around 10:30 as well. There's the upcoming schedule. Make your plans. So if you have a date with a significant other, either take a rain check or maybe do it Thursday afternoon or somewhere between the afternoon and the evening sessions of the SEC. Hey, and trust me, don't make plans Saturday because we're going to be wall to wall with softball on Saturday. It's going to be fun. It's going to be thrilling, and we're looking forward to sharing it all with you. Let's see. We got some questions here in the chat. The 10-12 podcast, of course, talks about the Big 12. Stakes for BYU and Iowa State tomorrow even bigger. When Eric and I were breaking down the Big 12 bracket, we referenced how either BYU, Iowa State, or Houston were going to be in a Big 12 semifinal. And here we are tomorrow. BYU versus Iowa State. As a matter of fact, let me share with you the revised Big 12 schedule now that BYU has handled business versus Houston. So, let's take a look. So, Oklahoma State will take on Arizona State. That's going to be the 4 and 5 matchup. That's going to be tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Central. That's noon Eastern time. Then you got Texas Tech, the number 1 seed, taking on the Baylor Bears. Baylor had an impressive performance versus Kansas in the 5th inning, which we'll share with you in just a moment, and also of Eric Lopez's interview with Shailene Govan as well after the game. UCF, who the Knights had to hang on for dear life tonight versus Utah. Knights were 5-0. Utah scored 5 on the top of the 7th. UCF came back. Ashley Griffin hit a 2-run bomb to walk off the Utes to send the Knights to their first Big 12 tournament victory. And their reward will be a battle with Devin Netz, the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year, and Arizona, the Player of the Year, Devin Netz, and Arizona at 5 o'clock Central Time. And then the nightcap, Iowa State taking on BYU. And we see the semifinals. That'll be at 3 at 5:30 Central Time. Championship game will be at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on Saturday. That'll be on ESPN. Eric Lopez will be joining us from Oklahoma City, hopefully later on. I would say tonight, but it'll still be tonight, Wednesday in Oklahoma City, but it'll be Thursday here. Hey, that's why. Essentially, Eric, if for those of you who have been following our live streams since 2018, 2019, Eric would be the one in the studio, and I'll be joining in late from Oklahoma City. Now the roles have reversed. I'm hosting the show from the studio. Eric is in Oklahoma City and will be joining me on the back end. So for a lot of significant stakes, BYU especially, because if BYU wants to keep their tournament hopes alive, they're helped by Northwestern's loss tonight. I'll be perfectly honest with you. BYU may have to get to the Big 12 championship game, which means beating Iowa State tomorrow night and then beating preferably Arizona in the semifinal. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, Arizona is the number 2 seed in the Big 12 tournament, but UCF went to Hillenbrand and took 2 out of 3 from the Wildcats earlier in the season. Hey, I'm simply a messenger. Hero brings up an interesting conversation. I think Ole Miss needs to be Texas to host. Alabama losing helps, but the committee loves them some. Yep, I 100% agree. Whenever it's close, Bama always gets the nod. I don't know how, I don't know why, but let's remember, ladies and gentlemen, and if no one else is going to say it, we will here and in the circle. It's all about television. It's all about getting how many eyeballs can you get on the screen and how many familiar locations can we have hosting because of our contracts with various conferences, SEC Network. But I think Alabama, Bob, I'll tell you this. Let's say a team like Virginia Tech in the ACC, which we'll get to shortly, if they get in position, if they have a run and they win the ACC tournament, or Duke, could they host at the cost of Alabama? We'll have to see. But in fact, let's get to the ACC bracket right now because North Carolina had a defensive performance of the ages this evening in their game versus Notre Dame. Low-scoring affair. Tar Heels win 2-0. And I would like to take this opportunity to once again bash the people who made up the USA Softball Top 25 Player of the Year list. How do you have a Player of the Year list and somehow not include the nation's leader in RBIs and Cat Rodriguez? Can someone explain that logic to me? Like I'm 5. Because the math ain't mathing when it comes to that particular component. But the night tonight was not about Cat Rodriguez. No. It was not about Cat Rodriguez. It was about her teammate doing wonderful, wonderful things. Santa Thompson doing it all with the bat and the glove for North Carolina, providing great support for Kenya Ray Dark, who threw a complete game shutout to beat Notre Dame. By the way, if you go to d1softball.com social media, our own Jenna Becerra, who is in Chestnut Hill, had a chance to talk to the Tar Heel hurler about her performance in advancing North Carolina into the quarterfinals. So when you look at the quarterfinals, we mentioned Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech will play that final game versus North Carolina. Clemson, the 2 seed, they take on Virginia. Virginia had to hold on for dear life versus Louisville today. Virginia won that game late 3-2. You got another super regional rematch from 2022 for 2023 in Duke versus Stanford. And then the opening game of quarterfinal Thursday will be Florida State versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech shut out Cal 8-0 in their 8-9 game, the opening round of the tournament. You see the scores for the opening day of play in Boston. Now, I don't know if that 8-0 loss will cause Cal to get bumped out of the tournament, but the way things are starting to percolate, things are going to get really interesting. I don't think the Golden Bears will have to sweat on Selection Sunday, but if certain things break a different way, we will have to see. Let's see. We got Joshua Tripp wants to go back to Bree Ellis. Can we give credit to Bree Ellis' teammates for getting her on base, causing that grand slam, plus Peyton pitching a dominant game? Of course, look, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, it's full. And I think it was fascinating, and I'll continue my Bree Ellis talk more on Friday. Arkansas is more than just Bree Ellis, ladies and gentlemen. They are a well-rounded team with a pitching staff that's coming into form. We'll certainly give them flowers about that. Now, going back to the ACC, the fascinating thing about the ACC is you could have a situation where all 4 teams, Florida State, we know is going to host. Clemson, we're pretty sure they're going to host. Duke and Virginia Tech, that's going to be the wild card. So if everything holds serve and we get to the semifinals on Friday afternoon, you can have Florida State versus Duke, and you have Clemson versus Virginia Tech, excuse me. Would it be far-fetched to say that if the winner of Clemson, Virginia Tech locks up a hosting bid? Is it that far-fetched to say? Especially if Oregon somehow does not win the Big Ten tournament title. More questions to ponder as you go further along the road on this conference championship week. It is officially 12:01, ladies and gentlemen. So good morning. It's Thursday. You know what that means. We ain't gonna have a podcast on Thursday. So hey, there it is. You're watching In the Circle Live. I'm Victor Anderson. Eric Lopez will be joining us shortly. He is working on getting us post-game content from the Big 12 tournament in Oklahoma City. Speaking of Oklahoma City, let's talk about what Baylor did yesterday versus Kansas. Baylor was tied 3-3 with Kansas in the 5th inning. Kansas actually had tied the game 3-3 in the top of the inning. Then Baylor got a 2-run home run from Shaylin Gova in the left center field to make the score 5-3. Then Tarika Coleman hit a shot to straightaway center field to give the Bears a 6-3 lead. And then Kentron Dawson hits a home run to make it 7-3. And when Baylor put up this tweet, I was absolutely floored by this. And this is a tweet. Never in the history of any game played by the Baylor Bears have they hit 3 consecutive home runs. Govan, Coleman, Dawson did that in their quarterfinal, in their first round win versus Kansas on Wednesday. And after that, our own Eric Lopez, who I referenced, is in Oklahoma City, had a chance to catch up with Shaylin Govan about that historic back-to-back jacks and what the Bears would need to do to knock off the number one seed in Texas Tech. So here now is Eric Lopez's conversation with Shaylin Govan. You can find that also on our D1 softball site and also on the In the Circle YouTube channel. So here's that conversation right now with Eric Lopez and Shaylin Govan from the Big 12 softball tournament in Oklahoma City.
Eric Lopez here, D1 softball at the Big 12 Championship. Shaylin Govan, Baylor advancing with the 7-3 win over Kansas. All right, let's talk about that bottom of the fifth. Historic back-to-back home runs, first time in program history. You started off. Tell me about your at-bat.
Yeah, in my at-bat, I was just trying to see a good pitch and make sure I was getting a strike. And so I just kind of remembered what she threw me the first at-bat, which was a changeup in that line drive that I hit to left field. So I was just trying to see that pitch again. That's what I got. So I was just on time for it.
Then Taria follows up with the home run. Then they make a pitching change, and then a third home run. Take me through those two, what you were seeing there.
Yeah, TC has been hitting the ball hard. She just had some, unlucky hits. And so she was able to get under one and show her power. And so that was exciting for her. Happy for her. And then with KD having a pitching change and her coming back to do it again, it was amazing. Actually, some of our teammates had called it. They were like, she's going to do it. And so it's good to see her hard work pay off. And so I'm happy for her.
What does a win like this now mean? You turn your attentions to Texas Tech there, but you got some good momentum. Lily gave you another good outing.
Yeah, it's just really important for us to, play one pitch at a time, one game at a time. And so we have 11 seniors on this team, so we're just playing to see another day, and our teammates are coming right behind us, so it's cool to see.
All right, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
That's Shaylin Govan, Eric Lopez here for D1 softball at the Big 12 Championship. Stay D1 softball for all the coverage throughout the week.
And there is that interview with Eric Lopez. Got that exclusively from our YouTube stream. Now, what's fascinating about the back-to-back with Baylor, and you heard Govan reference it, Kansas made a pitching change, and then they saw, and the information that Dawson got was enough to allow her to boom, get that deep and seal the game for Baylor. Baylor wins the game 7-3. And of course, they will take on Texas Tech in the quarterfinal. Now, Texas Tech swept all three games versus the Bears and held Baylor to just one run in that series. Eric Lopez, we have gotten confirmation. He is on his way back to the hotel, so he will be joining me very shortly to give us his recap on what he saw in Oklahoma City. 1012 Podcast has a interesting question. What most interesting mid-major tournament? I'll give you two mid-major tournaments to kind of scan the situation. One of them actually is Conference USA. Conference USA, it's been Liberty's league all season long. Western Kentucky is hosting there the 2 seed. But as we go to the D1 softball scoreboard to share with all of you, we will see in Conference USA that one of the favorites, or at least one of the contenders, is out. New Mexico State lost on a walk-off home run 5-4 to Louisiana Tech, and then falls late to Sam Houston State 5-3. So New Mexico State will not have a chance to run it back versus Liberty. Liberty got a bye along with Western Kentucky, and they will be playing on tomorrow. The other conference tournament that I'll be fascinated to watch, I wanted to pick the Colonial, which is kind of easy. It's going to be the WAC. Here's why. Grand Canyon won the regular season championship. if Grand Canyon does not win the WAC, I don't know if they have enough of a resume to get a large bid. Now, Utah Valley was up on Seattle 3-0 before we went on the air. Seattle, as you see, has responded back with an 8 spot. They lead 8-3. They're in the top of the 4th there. By the way, all of this available on the new look D1softball.com. Streamlined, easy, accessible, all live scores right there and available for you. One other league I do want to highlight real quick before we go forward. The Atlantic Sun Conference. Yes, I know I talk about the Atlantic Sun a lot because I broadcast for a school there. Mainly the Stetson Hatters, because Stetson, I don't think many people realize that Stetson won 30 games this year and is inside the top 60 in RPI. Stetson, after blowing that 11-0 lead to UCF on that midweek, I know we talked about it ad nauseum with Bryson Turner from Black and Gold Banner Red when it happened a couple of weeks ago. Stetson has rebounded nicely. They took 2 out of 3 versus Jacksonville. They swept West Georgia, and they found themselves second place in the Graphite Division behind the powerful North Florida Ospreys. Stetson plays North Florida tomorrow. Now, Austin Peay. Now, I want to stress this for the record. The A-Sun did not have any cross-divisional play until this week in Oxford, Alabama, in the A-Sun tournament. It was 2 teams, 6 teams each division. You played everyone in your division at least once. Certain teams you played 2 series home and home. Team with the worst record in each division missed the tournament. So Stetson, because they took advantage of playing in the quote-unquote weaker division, with North Florida dominating Florida Gulf Coast, David Dayrose in his final season, Florida Gulf Coast, by the way, the conference tournament champions, they stay alive. They beat Central Arkansas 5-3. They find themselves ready to go. Oh, wait, we will table our conversation for the conference right now, because joining us, ladies and gentlemen, from Oklahoma City, the man, the myth, the mention, Mr. Eric Lopez. Good evening or morning, I guess. What's up, sir?
Yeah, greetings. I could tell the background here. I'm outside Devon Park. I'm waiting on an Uber, Vic. You know that very well.
Yes.
A night where I'm assuming the Thunder, from what I heard, blew out whoever the heck they're playing, because I forgot. I'm in softball mode. Anyway, playing the Nuggets. That's who they were. So I'm waiting for a few minutes. Once the Uber gets here, I will bounce. But figure to, in the meantime, catch up. And how you doing?
I'm doing very well. We're doing a lot better than the Denver Nuggets are right now.
All right, give me some quick questions before the Uber. What do you want to know?
Well, Eric, the big thing was we just your interview with Shaylen Goldman. Your back-to-back home runs for Baylor versus Kansas. Do the Bears have a shot versus Texas Tech tomorrow?
I think they do. They're playing really well. They hit the ball back-to-back home runs, as you know, Govan, we talked about in the interview in first time in program history. They played Texas Tech well earlier in the year, and I think the big question, Victor, is going to be who does Jerry Glasgow decide to throw tomorrow? Does he go with Nyjah tomorrow, or does he go with Chloe Riasetto and try to save Nyjah? Because do you really, the big question I think people are wondering, are you going to throw Nyjah all 3 days? And if you don't, which game do you not throw her? So is it tomorrow? Do you throw Chloe and have Nyjah in relief? So I think that's the suspense that I think people are going to be curious about tomorrow in a big game for both. I think Baylor needs it to have a chance to make the tournament. They need to win that game. It's a must win. And for Texas Tech, it's probably a big game for them to win to stay on the right side of hosting. So it's a pretty important game.
Now let's go to UCF. You're very familiar with. You a lot of their games on ESPN Plus. What was that roller coaster of emotions like that? Being up 5-0. Now it's tied. And then they get to walk off and they advance to play Arizona tomorrow.
It was wild because Isabella Vega had shut them down, had 5 no-hit innings. against Utah. They were kind of coasting. They brought in Caitlin Felton. I know people were asking about that. Felton has been a high leverage pitcher all year. I think Coach Bob Malone wanted to get her some work because I think work some kinks out because he's kind of been scuffling the last couple of weeks, and they're going to need her in this tournament and next week at the regionals. And give Utah credit, man. They had some quality at bats. They got to Felton. They brought back Issa Vega, who was not as sharp when she re-entered the game. And Utah pounded him for 5 runs. There was a UCF error that contributed to that. And it was crazy. You're thinking it went from like, all right, we're about to wrap this up. And I think people were in shock. But then give UCF credit. That's been the story of the year. Just when you think they're down, Aubrey Evans starts the inning with a hit. Humphreys lines out. Aubrey gets back to first. And then Ashley Griffin with the 2-run homer that will go down in UCF history. It's the first ever Big 12 tournament win in program history. It was more interesting than I thought it would be, but it'll certainly be memorable and a big win for them to get that over the hump to win at this park right here.
Yes.
You know as well as I do, that's a big deal for that program.
Now UCF has a chance on Arizona. People watching us there. UCF went to Tucson and beat the Wildcats 2 out of 3 early in the season. So they're not going to be intimidated by Arizona.
No, at all. And I think that was the other reason they took Issa out is I think they wanted to give her some rest because they might use her tomorrow as well with those 2 arms. But, it didn't pan out. So they had to use them both. And we'll see how they come out against Arizona in their debut in the Big 12 tournament.
One last question, I'm pretty sure I heard that number your Uber. BYU having to take care of business versus Houston. How important is it for BYU that they won, beat Iowa State tomorrow, and 2, hope that Arizona advances to they play them in the finals on Friday?
Most of that is true. I mean, regardless if it's UCF, Arizona, they need to win that game, get a quality win. The good news for them is Northwestern was upset by Purdue today. Korth, who I did an interview with, you'll see that on the D1 socials, was magnificent. And then Brittingham, the freshman of the year, is magnificent watching her live. But they know they got to make a run, and that's going to set up a wild – I have a feeling BYU, Iowa State's going to be a wild game. So, but you're right. They got to win at least 2 games to have a shot to make the NCAA tournament. They did get some help from Northwestern losing. The non-conference schedule is a concern for BYU. The committee frowns on that. But, boy, this team's got some good wins, and they've got some quality arms. So, solid win. Good to see Korth, who missed basically all of last year, only pitched 13 innings, was in street clothes here a year ago at this stadium when BYU made its debut and upset Oklahoma State. She was excited to pitch in this stadium, and she was solid, and they've got the arms to make a run here. And I like their draw, Vic. This is a team that can make some noise and put in a final statement there for the committee. And maybe try, as Courtney can said in the postgame, try to take it in their own hands and not leave it up to the committee.
Well, we got plenty more questions for you, sir. We'll wait for you to get situated at headquarters in OKC before we get to those questions there. We will talk to you in a bit.
Thank you, sir.
Eric Lopez, ladies and gentlemen, joining me from Devon Park as he waits to return back to, I'm echoing what Clay's. I think it was Eric had me on speaker when he was connecting into the StreamYard. So sometimes, Hero, that does happen. So we do apologize for the technical glitches. We assure you that once Eric gets situated back at his headquarters, that everything will be nice and clean with the audio and good to go. Fang, I will ask that question. Now, for those of you who are, again, new to our In the Circle Live, back in 2019, I believe, we were doing an In the Circle Live post-game show back when we were the only ones doing post-game shows after the World Series. It was Eric, myself, and Justin McLeod. To tell you how far ago that was, 2021, thank you, Fang Nine, we were still with Fast Pitch News, and I believe Justin was still writing for Justin's World of Softball. Tells you how far we've come. Yes, and that was the year I had to leave because 2021 was a significant year in terms of how the scheduling was changed for the Women's College World Series, weather included. Thank you, Florida State and Oklahoma State, for making me stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and having to start to drink plenty of these, which were running out of the press box at the time. But anyway, while Justin, Eric, and I were having our conversation, a fire alarm went off at the hotel I was staying at. So I had to evacuate temporarily. I came back in the room. Well, no, I didn't leave the room the first time because I thought it was a false alarm. Then it went off again. It turns out, well, I do have to evacuate. So I had to exit the stream, leave my room, get out of the hotel. Turned out it was a false alarm. Then I walked back in, and fire alarm Vic was born and is stuck with me now going on 4 years. So yeah, it's that's kind of fun. Oh yeah, we like to welcome those of you who finished watching the absolute massacre of Oklahoma City whooping Denver 149 to 106. We assure you that this will be much more entertaining and much more competitive than that first. Let me put it this way: I got ready for the live stream tonight when that game was in the first quarter. So yeah, that's how that was. So let's see. We talked about the Power Four conferences. We talked about all the mid-major conferences. A couple notes I do want to bring up in terms of conferences that I'm looking forward to. Keep an eye out on the Mountain West because you got Boise State and Nevada. Not Boise State, Nevada. You got San Diego State and Nevada. If those two teams, San Diego State and Nevada, if they play for the conference championship, but let's say Nevada wins with Victoria Hayward, San Diego State may have enough of a resume to steal an at-large. Maybe from Cal. Who knows? I have to keep an eye on that. Boise State did win their opening round game of the Mountain West tournament. San Jose State lost to Fresno State. And the other opening round game that's hosted by San Diego State. The Big West, they're having their inaugural conference tournament this week as well, hosted by Cal State Fullerton. We had their ace pitcher on our Monday episode. You should watch it. You can listen to it right now. We strongly recommend you do so because, again, no Thursday podcast. This is serving in replacement of our regularly scheduled Thursday episode. With the Big West, Hawaii beat Long Beach State. So Long Beach State is in the losers bracket. And right now, Long Beach State is losing to UC Santa Barbara 6-0. That's in the bottom of the six. So Long Beach State could be 2 and done in the inaugural Big 12 tournament. That's an elimination game because UC Santa Barbara lost to UC San Diego in this other opening round game, 6-4. The number 1 and number 2 seeds, Fullerton, and Cal State Northridge will begin their conference tournament tomorrow at Anderson Field. Again, go to d1softball.com for the new look website. Matter of fact, let's show it to y'all one more again. Look at this lovely layout. And look at conference tournaments, all available for you right there. Podcasts, you can listen to our podcast, and of course, Jenna Becerra and Amanda Lorenz with the D1 Softball podcast. You will see Jenna and Hero. Thank you, sir, for the update. Santa Barbara just run ruled. Wow. Long Beach State 2 and done in the inaugural Big West tournament. Wow. So no Long Beach State. So it'll be either UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, Hawaii, Fullerton, or CSUN, Cal State Northridge with Charlotte Morgan, trying to get that big out of the Big West. But of course, the big one tonight, Purdue versus Northwestern. Purdue stunning the Wildcats 4-2. Now, I did ask this question. I'll ask it again. If you think Northwestern should be out of the tournament because of their loss tonight with Purdue, put a 1 in the chat. If you think Northwestern is going to still make the tournament, put a 2 in the chat. 1, if you think Northwestern is out of the tournament because of their loss tonight. 2, if you think Northwestern is still going to be in the tournament. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at Northwestern's resume while we wait for Mr. Eric Lopez to get situated in the in the hotel, who will be joining us very shortly. I mean, the thing with Northwestern is that yes, that was a flash of lightning in my area. Go figure. We have all this talk about needing weather. We get some rain. We all get thunder and lightning. So as long as we have power, we'll be live with y'all. So hopefully it'll be maybe another 20, 25 minutes or so. So let's take a look at Northwestern's resume. See, they started in Clearwater. They beat Duke. See, so Duke's their best win so far. You look at Northwestern. Beat Louisville. Beat Mississippi State. You can make the argument with Northwestern. Their two best wins came last weekend against UCLA. And their third best win is either Mississippi State at home or Duke at the NSCAA Leadoff Classic. 4 top 25 wins. I think going into last weekend, Northwestern needed some help. With the 2 wins versus UCLA, that certainly boosted their resume. The problem is you turn around and you lose to Purdue. Granted, it was on Purdue's home field in the Big Ten tournament in the 5-12 game, but the opportunity was there. Because if you beat Purdue, you take care of business there, and you knock off Ohio State in the quarterfinals, that gives you another top 25 win and a shot at the top 10 win, presuming you play Oregon in the semifinal. So now, Fang, did Northwestern do enough? 29-18-1, 16-6 in the Big Ten. And the Big Ten, that by many people's standards was not really strong this year, or as strong as they anticipated this year. For now, I think Northwestern is still in. But if you're Northwestern, you're rooting for a lot of chalk in the conference tournaments. For example, in the American, you're rooting for FAU or USF to win the tournament. If for CUSA, you're rooting for Liberty to get in. And Fang Knight asked about Indiana, Michigan, and BYU. As a matter of fact, let us take a look at those schools while we wait for Mr. Lopez to join us. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first of 4. Yes, 4 times we're going to be going live throughout this championship week. We're going to be going live again on Friday night, and we're going to be going live twice on Saturday. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and Saturday night at 10:30. So wake up within the circle on Saturday and go to bed and go to sleep listening to In the Circle. So let's go to the Big Ten. Actually, let's go to the Big 12. Let's look at BYU first. BYU 31-16. Of course, BYU with that 32-16. Thank you to the updated website of D1 Softball to get that information. 32-16 for BYU. And Eric referenced BYU's non-conference strength of schedule. Allow me to illustrate said strength of schedule. UC San Diego, Winthrop, Portland State, North Dakota State, Boise State, Indiana. Now, keep in mind that these games here were played in Puerto Vallarta. And then at Mary Nutter, they beat Washington. They beat Hawaii. Okay, so their best wins so far are Washington and maybe Hawaii. They beat Arizona State in a game. Swept Houston. They took a game against Arizona. Took a game against UCF. took a game against Texas Tech. So let's see, that's 1. That's 2 top 50 wins. That's 3 top 50 wins, 2 top 25 wins. Arizona State. So 4 top 50 wins, possibly 5 top 50 wins for BYU. But Indiana beat BYU. Now, the committee doesn't consider head-to-head. So really 2 top 25 wins, Fang. Thank you for confirming. So now let's look at Indiana. Boise State, wedged the win against BYU. They beat Ohio State. They beat Nebraska. So, and of course, we referenced their win against Washington. So let's see. Washington, that's a top 50. They beat Nebraska, that's a top 50 win. Ohio State, that's a top 50 win. And BYU, Iowa State, I know was outside of the top 50. So so they both had 2 top 25 wins. And Indiana beat BYU earlier in the season. Again, head-to-head should not matter. But if you're dealing with teams that close, it could come down to that. Again, BYU has Iowa State tomorrow and potentially Iowa State and potentially Arizona in the semifinal. Indiana, UCLA. If Indiana stuns UCLA, that might be that proverbial ace up the sleeve that gets Shonda Stanton and the Hoosiers in the tournament for the second year in a row, thanks to a deep run of the Big Ten tournament, because that's what got Indiana in the tournament last year. A strong run in the Big Ten tournament, several teams falling by the wayside in front of them, and they stepped right into the field of 64. Could we see history repeat itself this year? We'll have to wait and see. I'm fascinated. By the way, Eric, my colleague did not realize about Oklahoma City having a home playoff game, so he did not plan things out accordingly. So Eric will be joining me a little bit later than we thought. So hopefully he will be joining us before we get off the air within the next half hour or so. But let's take a look. So we looked at Indiana. We looked at BYU. Let's take a look at Michigan, shall we? Because Michigan, they have Oregon tomorrow. See what I said about Indiana and copy it and paste it to Michigan. So Michigan, 35-19, they finished 11-11 in the Big Ten. Now, unlike Indiana and unlike BYU, Michigan doesn't really have that win that jumps off the sheet, that jumps off the resume for you. So let's analyze. USF. USF twice. They have a win against North Carolina. South Dakota State, who has a chance to win the Summit League once again. Got swept by Oregon. Swept by Ohio State. Swept by UCLA. Unless I'm missing something, Chad, is Michigan's best win against either North Carolina, South Dakota State, or USF? Because those are their 3 best wins that I found. They have no top 25 wins. and maybe 2 top 50. So if we had to put the pecking order, at least from my perspective, I would say Indiana and BYU are right there. And then you have Michigan. That's just how I see it. Indiana, BYU, and honestly, you can flip them based on what their results are tomorrow. And then Michigan's below those two. Northwestern, Indiana, BYU, Michigan. And this is the other thing we have to take into consideration, ladies and gentlemen. And Eric and I are gonna expound on this more when we get to Friday night, and especially when we're on the air Saturday. The unbalanced conference schedules. How much will the committee weigh that when evaluating these teams and these resumes? Because again, let's go back to Michigan's schedule. They played UCLA. They played Oregon. And outside of that, a little left to be desired. But if we go back, and let's take a look at a team like let's look at Iowa. 35 wins this season. In spite of all the drama that was going on behind the scenes. Renee Gillespie had to take a personal leave, and it was announced that she would be not returning as Iowa head coach. But let's look at Iowa's schedule in conference. Beat Indiana twice, split with UCLA, swept by Wisconsin, lost 2 out of 3 to Nebraska, swept Maryland, swept Penn State, took 2 out of 3 versus Michigan State, swept Rutgers, and then lost to Penn State. So Iowa's schedule, take out UCLA. Didn't have to play Washington. Didn't have to play Oregon. Played Nebraska at home, got demolished. But you get my point. But people have questions, and our resident bracketologist has settled and has the answers. Mr. Eric Lopez joining us from the hotel. You did not anticipate the Thunder home game, did you, sir?
When we planned this out, no, this never came up. When you and I discussed this, neither one of us said, hey, are you sure about the Uber? There is the Thunder playoff game that you may want to consider at home, and they jacked the prices up, and the driver was fantastic, so I apologize. That's why I had to jump in from the state, which kind of worked out fine. I don't know how it sounded. I don't know how I sound now.
Well, we had some people saying that there was some echoes when you were getting me on speaker waiting for the Uber, so we had to.
It was a spur of the moment.
I know it is.
Now.
We much better now. We were kind of breaking down the situation with the Big Ten, with Northwestern and Indiana, and we kind of brought up Michigan because those resumes with those three, especially with what happened with Northwestern tonight, losing to Purdue. Granted, it was at home, but losing to Purdue after what you did last week versus UCLA. And I'm sure, Eric, you're scrambling to get your notes for bracketology as we're talking about this. How much does this damage Northwestern's chances to stay in the field of 64 with plenty of games left to go in the conference tournaments?
Are you asking what I think the committee, or are you asking my person if it was me?
Let's ask you from the eyes of the committee.
I don't think it'll hurt them. It's going to hurt them, but it's not going to hurt them as bad as you would think, because I think Purdue is outside the, in the mid, they're in the 50s RPI wise.
Oh,
so it's not like they were a In fact, I'm looking it up right now, so I apologize. This is live, folks. It's programming right here. I'm actually going to look up their metrics, but it's not as bad as they've had a nice year. They've had a nice, improved year, Purdue. But certainly if you're in Northwestern, not ideal. Look, I'm going to try to be nice about this. No, I'm not. The Big Ten's garbage. There, I said it. If it was me, none of them would get in. To me, BYU should be in over all of them. But the non-conference schedule strength hurts BYU. So do I think the committee will agree with me on that? Probably not. They're probably going to pick a Northwestern and Indiana. Now, in Indiana's defense, they did what they needed to do. They beat Washington.
Yes.
So I think Indiana is probably in. Northwestern has 4 good wins with Duke. They took a game in a series against Mississippi State. But let's be real. The only reason Northwestern's being discussed was because they won that series against UCLA, and the bubble is weak this year.
Yes.
So do you guys really bring up Michigan? My God.
We brought down the schedule. We brought down Michigan's schedule.
In 2 months?
What? Wow.
Well, and this is the argument I would make from BYU. So you're going to punish us for the non-conference schedule strength, but you're not going to punish Indiana. You're not going to punish Michigan. You're not going to, Northwestern schedule is not so bad, which is why I think Northwestern will be all right. But that's my only thing. If it was me, I think BYU should be in, especially over Northwestern. I think you look at BYU's wins. They have wins over UCF. They have wins over Arizona. They got a win over Washington, Arizona State.
Texas Tech.
But that non-conference schedule's rough. The Texas Tech win last week, and they gave Texas Tech all they can handle last week. The thing, though, is the committee going to overlook their non-conference schedule strength, Victor? And I don't know. I personally think, and BYU got the win tonight. That's where it just came from. The problem is Houston's a quad 3 team, and then they play Iowa State tomorrow, who's in the 60s RPI. So that's not going to help BYU a lot. I think BYU has to win these 2 games and maybe pull an upset in the semifinals to maybe really make a statement here. But the good news for them is I think they got the draw to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. But, the Northwestern loss, God, that is so Big Ten. So Big Ten. And what was it? I saw where 3 double-digit seed teams won.
Yes. First time ever.
What are we?
First time ever 3 double-digit seeds won in the Big Ten first day of the tournament.
Well, and this is going to be interesting for the next day because Michigan plays Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big game for both sides. Oregon, I have on the outside looking in as of today, is hosting. They have to win that game, I think, to try to get back in the mix to be the right side to host. Michigan, obviously, if they can beat Oregon, that will obviously be a flashy win. So that's a tasty little game going on there. And then, the Northwestern's going to have to sit and watch. But this has been the story with Northwestern. They just haven't been consistent this year, and that's why they're in the situation that they're in.
So after we've analyzed the Big Ten, we talked about the Big 12 a little bit. The SEC situation, we were all kind of anticipating a possible Florida-Texas showdown in the quarterfinals tomorrow, and then Ole Miss throws a big old banana in the tailpipe and all of those plans that knocks the Gators out. So does it come down now, Eric, to Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and whoever wins Tennessee, Arkansas for potentially the number 1 overall seed, or is it just down to Texas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M?
It's a good question. I think A&M and Oklahoma are the favorites. They're the favorites. So I would say right now they're the front runner there. Yeah, the Florida loss, I think, takes them out of the top number 1 seed consideration. I still think they're a top 8 seed. It's hard to say where they're going to seed them because we got to see how every other game plays out. But, that's a good win for Ole Miss. I'm not in the camp that, this means Ole Miss is in the mix to host. I think Ole Miss has to make a deeper run than that to host, and I don't believe Ole Miss non-conference schedule was not that great. But they got the big win. Florida gets a week off basically, and so yeah, I would say right now A&M is the odds-on favorite. But Oklahoma, because I think Oklahoma may have to win the Big 12 tournament to hold off an A&M
SEC
type.
tournament.
So what?
SEC tournament.
Yeah, what did I say?
The Big 12.
I am in the Big 12. My mind's all on the Big 12. Well, in fairness, Oklahoma used to be in the Big 12 many years.
Many moons ago.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's interesting to me what's I think A&M right now might have the edge. If you told me tonight who would be my number one seed, it's probably A&M right now.
Okay.
But I think Texas could be the big winner from the Florida loss.
Yes.
Because if they make a run here, they can move up. And then, Arkansas, Tennessee, that's going to be interesting. Does Tennessee throw Pickens against Arkansas? Arkansas has had success against Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee can get to the number one seed. I don't know if I don't know if Arkansas can either. I mean, it'll be close. It depends again how that tournament plays out. And I'm just going to throw this out there. What if Florida State just runs roughshod in the ACC tournament? Just throwing that out there.
I mean, they got Georgia Tech tomorrow. If they win that, they got Duke in the semifinal.
Georgia Tech today against Cal. That's a good win. Very good win for Aileen Morales. That
very good win.
They can bring easy. They will be in the tournament.
Now I'm interested to see because we kind of touched on all the big conferences in that particular perspective. Are there any non-power conferences that you are kind of keeping your eye on or keeping your ear to the ground in terms of potential bid thieves?
The American and CUSA. If somebody other than FAU wins, then somebody's going to have their bid stolen. If USF wins the American, that's, I have them in. USF might want to make sure they get to the final because the resume has taken a hit with North Texas getting swept by East Carolina. They dropped out of the top 50 RPI. So South Florida lost 2 quad 2 wins there. Charlotte, they need Charlotte to win to get to the semis so they can get back to the top 50 so they can pick up those 3 wins they had against Charlotte. It was in the top 50. They lost. So South Florida quietly as of right now, has 1 top 50 win the whole year. That makes me nervous. Yeah, and there's always a surprise. And I wonder, could South Florida be the team that gets left out if they don't take care of business? So the American is fascinating in that regard. And then CUSA is if Liberty does not win the tournament, they're going to be in the field. And then that's a bid stolen. Could be one of the teams we just mentioned earlier, the Northwesterns, Indianas, the BYU, whoever could be cut out there. So I think those are the 2. Everybody else, I can't honestly say it's guaranteed it's going to be a bid stolen. There's going to be questions. If you're in Nevada, you don't have a strong resume. Your best wins was literally your home series win against San Diego State. That's it. If they lose the conference tournament, I don't know if that's enough to keep them in. Grand Canyon's non-conference schedule strength is brutal. That might keep them out. So I can't say, Vic, there's any other leagues. I think it's the American and CUSA in the scenarios that I brought up.
Yeah, it's I've never had a year when we've been doing this, and this is our 9th official postseason, talking about brackets, talking about the field, where there are so many questions throughout 1 through 64. Who's the number 1 seed? Where are top 8 seeds going to be? Who's going to get the host? Who's going to be in? Who's going to be out? And I want to bring this up, Eric. Coastal Carolina held on in an opening round game in the Sun Belt today versus Southern Miss. As of right now, Eric, I believe you have Coastal Carolina as one of your first teams out.
Yeah.
So Coastal Carolina plays Marshall in the Sun Belt quarterfinals tomorrow. I presume Coastal Carolina would be best served to win the Sun Belt Conference title.
Yeah, they got a lot of quad 4 losses. I mean, the last 2 series were quad 4 losses, and
Yeah.
the committee hates that. We had Kurt McGuffin on the show, Vic, talked about that they look at quality. They don't want to see a lot of bad quad 4 losses. Okay, and Coastal has a ton of those. Obviously the win over South Carolina is still carrying a lot of weight.
But the problem is it's losing more. The problem is it's like scales. You have the win with South Carolina propped up here, but then as you add more, then you have the quad 4 losses tipping the scales in the other direction.
Exactly.
Like an anchor wearing it down.
Of course. I have a link that I use for my bubbles to make my bracketology, and it's telling me it's encountered an error. Please try again later. That tells you,
if that
screwed up the whole field.
If that doesn't tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how stressful it's going to be figuring out the field of 64 come selection Sunday.
I'm not looking forward to it at all. I'm not looking forward to it one bit. So it is what it is. But listen, it's going to play itself out. I think it's only Wednesday. It doesn't feel like it's only Wednesday, but my goodness, it is still only Wednesday. And that's the problem. If you're Northwestern, for example, you got to wait a whole long week.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good situation to be. Could go either way. You're going to need some help probably. So we'll see what this goes. I'm going to my backup one. I'm going to a backup one here, Victor, live. That's why I'm scrolling here to see if I can get some updated numbers so I can give you some, new information. I feel like I'm that meteorology during the hurricanes coming.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
what they talk about? Like, we're waiting for the 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock report. Chief certified meteorologist Tom Terry in our neck of the woods.
Correct. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Coastal has to win the tournament. I think the Sun Belt's a one-bid league. There's just too many losses for Coastal. It's a shame because I like them a lot, and I was hoping, the way it would shake out. Maybe you could get the American with 2 bids, the Mountain West with 2 bids, the Sun Belt with 2 bids. I think everybody would be pretty happy with that. Unfortunately, that is probably not going to happen.
Nope. Doesn't appear that way at all. Couple last questions, Eric, before we sign off for the evening, because you don't you notice, ladies and gentlemen, but it's still 11 p.m. where Eric is. He has a quick turnaround because first pitch is at 11 a.m. over at Devon Park of Arizona State and Oklahoma State. So we will give him as much rest as possible, which I'm knowing him will be about 5 hours.
Right.
What?
Something to watch, because the RPI officially should update tomorrow.
Okay.
Where is Northwestern? Remember, they were 44 going into today. BYU was 46.
Ooh.
That's how tight they were. Does it
Wow.
flip? That's something to watch. I'm trying to give you fresh material, people.
That's why Eric Lopez is the best in the business, ladies and gentlemen.
Does they flip? Do they flip? Because in my bracketology that came out early on Wednesday, I actually had Northwestern 63, Indiana 64, BYU 65. Indiana won. Give them credit. Beat Washington.
Yep. Yes.
Northwestern didn't take care of business. BYU did win. Does the RPI flip? And if it does, that could be the difference. Now, BYU still got work to do here.
Yes.
But that would be, and I told some of the people at BYU, they were asking me about it, and they're like, yeah, it's not bad news that Northwestern lost. If I'm BYU, though, you're rooting for Michigan to lose tomorrow against Oregon. That's what you need. And then you need to beat Iowa State. But let's not forget Baylor. That's another team that has 8 to 9 wins. I'm curious to see where they end up. They're probably not going to move up much after beating Kansas, but they were in the 57, 58 range. And if they beat a quad 1 Texas Tech team, where did they jump up in the RPF? That's what I'm saying. This is
then things really get interesting, because you could have a Baylor versus Oklahoma State or Arizona State Big 12. You could have Baylor if things break right for Glenn Moore, he could find himself in the Big 12 championship game Saturday with a chance with one of his best coaching jobs, as you've highlighted on this episode, on this podcast, to make the Big 12 championship and win the Big 12 championship and play his way into the tournament. And you're saying Coleman and Govan, remember how close Baylor came to beating Florida in Gainesville in that game 3 of that Super Regional last year.
Agreed. Purdue, by the way, was in the low 50s RPI. So it's not a disastrous loss like it sounds.
Okay.
But it's not ideal. So that, Northwest, again, that's why I don't want to say something because I don't have, unfortunately, the updated RPI numbers. So I'll probably wait till the morning. But I think that's something to watch if you're a nerd like I am about this stuff. You got to see how that plays out. And again, it's only Wednesday. Like one thing that we got to be careful is we make massive conclusions when the week is only starting.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of I try to caution people because every year we overreact to one result and think it's the end of the world, especially in hosting. I remember a couple of years ago, I already flipped out.
Oh, the Louisiana situation with them hosting?
Yeah. Well, no, it was the one where Texas lost to Texas Tech, which was a bad year for Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Everybody assumed Texas was not going to host it. Oregon was going to host, and it didn't happen. Texas not only hosted, but they hosted Oregon, and everybody came up with conspiracy theories. And
everyone went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yes.
So I just say we got to be careful with that.
We do.
From that standpoint.
I agree. And then the thing is, Wednesday's results are not the whole story. They're just one chapter in the story.
Yeah. It was 2021, Fang Nai. You're right. It was 2021 from that standpoint. So we'll see what happens with that. Jenna Lord, congrats to her. AAC Player of the Year for Charlotte. That's a team that's like 52-53. They got a game tomorrow or later today or wherever you are. I don't know.
They play tomorrow in your time zone, later today in our time zone. It'll be tomorrow for you in 6 minutes.
If you're South Florida, like I said, you in a weird way, you need Charlotte to win that game and then play them in the semis and beat them so you can get those wins back against Charlotte in your top 50. I really am nervous about South Florida a little bit.
By the way, Charlotte's playing East Carolina. Wichita State takes on North Texas.
Yeah. Spoilers. Yeah, a lot of spoiler potential there. What other results jumps out? Bree Ellis, right? Locked up the National Player of the Year, right?
As I said, Eric, on the podcast, and you said I was speaking hyperbole when I made this statement, and I'll say it one more time at 12:55 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday. If Bree Ellis is not named National Player of the Year by all universal acclaim, there needs to be an investigation full blown to the fullest extent.
Yeah, no, that's a wrap on that award. That's a wrap. By the way, SEC, can you just go out and announce your award? Stop this, milking this milking it to the end of the week. All right, just get it out of the way already. Jesus Christ, God. It's a miracle. They actually finished on schedule over there. Big win. Shout out to South Carolina.
Yes.
Big win for them. They took 3 out of 4 from Alabama. I will say this again. If Alabama was a different brand, they would not be hosting. In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to host probably.
Don't worry. The chat agrees. And because we've seen too much proof of that concept time and time again, that Bama always gets the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And that's going to be the storyline is A, they host, but B, where's the seeding? Like they should not have a high seeding, no higher than 14, to be honest. Now, whether that happens or not, who knows?
I agree.
And South Carolina is very alive in the top 8 seed. Very alive.
And the other thing to consider, Eric, the teams that you can usually send to Tuscaloosa, like a Clemson, for example, Clemson is in position to host. So that's why how they fare in the ACC tournament, particularly if they get a semifinal matchup with Florida State on Friday and they beat the Seminoles,
Well, Clemson and Vatech are in the.
Oh, Clemson and Vatech. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm getting them confused with Duke. Duke's the 4th seed in the ACC.
Correct.
But if Clemson beats Virginia Tech, that Clemson Virginia Tech matchup could be winner locks up hosting site. Could be.
Yeah, the winner of the Clemson Vatech, I think, locks up a host. I mean, if you're Virginia Tech, if you could beat Clemson, get to Clemson. You got to get to Clemson.
Yeah.
First, please.
Yeah, North Carolina will not make it easy.
No, but the good news for Vatech is, again, that's a top 50 game. So
Yes,
Oregon's got a top 50 game, for example. That both of them can cancel each other out and all that. But yeah, I have Vatech as the last host seed right now. But it's interesting. Like if you look at Alabama's metrics, none of the metrics suggest they're a top 16 seed. None of it. None.
But you know what? One metric does put them as a top 16 seed. What's on the front of the jersey?
Right, the reputation and getting the benefit of the doubt. But they have 20. I mean, they're limping in. They're limping in. I mean, say what you will, they're limping in. The 8th seed, by the way, you got with LSU, which we haven't even. I don't know if you brought up, dominated Mississippi State. He knew the freshman, a one-hit shutout was magnificent. They get Oklahoma next game. South Carolina, they won. Who do they get?
They get Texas A&M. We highlighted, Eric, we highlighted before we got you on the possibility you can have Gasso versus Gasso in one semifinal and a rematch of potentially the greatest super regional ever in the other semifinal in Texas and Texas A&M. Now, Tennessee and LSU and Ole Miss and South Carolina will have a lot to say if those dream semifinals become reality.
But here's the thing. With LSU and South Carolina winning today, putting a pressure on UCLA in the Big Ten tournament.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, the significance. And both Carolina and LSU have a chance, if they were to pull off a win tomorrow, to put up a massive top 5 RPI win on their resume that might be very difficult for UCLA to overcome. I have UCLA currently 8. But they do have 21 top 50 wins against. I think some people have overreacted to the Northwestern series losses. I'm not defending it in one bit. I'm just saying the resume overall is pretty good. But I'm telling you, I don't even know. Can you check the big? I don't know who UCLA has on their draw.
As a matter of fact, sir, I will pull up. I will give you the full Big Ten bracket right now. Look at that.
But I was really impressed. Ooh, look at you with Mr. Graphics here. They got Indiana. Yeah, I mean Indiana made the run to the Big Ten tournament final last year. If the Hoosiers were to upset UCLA, that might be toast for UCLA as a top 8 seed.
And I think, and not only that will all but lock up Indiana's getting into the field of 64.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Indiana beats UCLA, then there's not even a question at that point. In fact, I mean, Indiana may try to. By the way, Washington's not out of the woods. You talk about brands. I mean, if they weren't Washington, we might be talking a lot about them being in the bubble. If you look at
this is true.
Again, the Big Ten's not a good league, and I'm sorry. No offense to people that like it's not. It's not even
nothing personal.
No, but you guys decide to spend money on volleyball and wrestling, and not the good wrestling, the amateur wrestling. So, instead of softball. So that's what you get. We'll see on that. But yeah, this is going to be very complicated. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not optimistic that I'm going to nail all these picks. Not this year. I don't envy the committee on this. I don't. I do not envy this. I told Trevor up in that too. I don't envy.
When we had our live season preview extravaganza, one of the key talking points we said was this was going to be the hardest year for the selection committee to evaluate the 64 best / most deserving teams because of the unbalanced conferences, the unbalanced schedule, and the fluidity of the sport. And that has come to fruition and then some.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting what's the separator, because that's the challenge in all this. And but yeah, that's going to be interesting. Carolina, good pitching performance for them in the ACC. Props to them. They keep winning. So I think Carolina's okay. I think that Carolina's going to be in the field, Nate.
North Carolina's going to be in the field of 64. Great work by Megan
Nate's
Smith.
concerned about, as an Aggie fan, he's concerned about South Carolina.
Yeah,
he
South
should be.
Carolina. Oh, yeah.
Now, get back to that point. If LSU were to beat Oklahoma or South Carolina were to beat an A&M, how do you keep them out of the top 8?
And could it be? And it might be a UCLA's expense, regardless of what they do in the Big Ten tournament.
UCLA's expense could be at Tennessee's expense if they lose to Arkansas. Again, some of the metrics don't like Tennessee from a top 8 standpoint. Now, my counter to that is they have the series win at Texas and the series win at Oklahoma. Which carries them some weight. And I've always felt that the committee would try to not put 7 SEC teams host, but I'm telling you, UCLA may have to win the Big Ten tournament to hold off to keep a top.
The committee may not. The committee may not have an alternative.
Right. That's yeah. And Florida's host seeding will take a hit. How much? Again, I got to see what the rest of the week goes, but they're going to be a top 8 seed. There's no scenario I don't see. They were 2 RPI going into today. I had them as the number 1 seed because the head-to-head with A&M and Oklahoma. I could see them dropping to again, that's what's so tricky about this. Could they be a 5 seed, for example? Maybe. Depends on what else happens.
But here's the other thing, and we'll wrap up on this point because we got plenty to talk. Well, look, this is the first of our 4 live streams.
We're a lot earlier, and the Thunder are on the road. The Thunder are on the road. So please, people.
You'll be fine. Yes. One final point we want to kind of wrap up on for tonight's live stream, because we'll have plenty more to talk about between now and our next stream on Friday night, approximately 10:30 Eastern time. Which team gained the most from the results that took place today? Whether it's because of their winning, somebody else losing.
Sure.
Who was the biggest
winner?
And then
after this, let's go through the schedule tomorrow, since we won't be on tomorrow, to highlight some key games that people need to watch in power leagues and mid-majors. Who gained the most? So the team that gained the most today, Indiana, I thought gained a lot by beating Washington. That's a big win for Sean Destan and company. Ole Miss picked up a good win against Florida. That's big for them. They've got 2 wins in this SEC tournament. We'll see where they are in the RPI range, but that's pretty good. I think Arkansas, with that dramatic win, picked up a valuable. Keep moving up in that seeding. It's as weird as that sounds. I think Georgia Tech stopping the bleeding. They had come in on a 4-game losing streak and beating Cal like they did was solid. And that Cal loss, you want to talk about something to look at when the RPI comes out. Where is Cal in RPI? Because one of the reasons it was a wild change from Sunday to Monday. Like Virginia Tech skyrocketed up, and some of the AC because Cal jumped into the top 25 RPI.
And it got added more top 25 wins.
Exactly. So that's something to watch from that standpoint. And, although the committee will tell me that, look, if the team's 26, it's not like that's a downgrade. They're not going to punish you. Oh, it's only 26, not 25. So I think we all overblow that a little bit. But It does impact the metrics. It does impact the metrics, which is why I do not encourage people to check out a certain site that has inaccurate numbers on the RPI when it comes to softball and has been told over and over again that they have the incorrect metrics, but refuses to change it. So he's an idiot when it comes to softball. Proceed.
We will let y'all ponder who Eric is talking about. And we're going to wrap up on that note.
Give me some names for tomorrow. Give me some games here tomorrow.
Well, SEC, I talked about this one. Tennessee, Arkansas. If Tennessee wants to have any chance to be in consideration for a top 4 seed, need to beat Arkansas and then beat Oklahoma and maybe beat A&M or Texas to win the SEC championship.
Kind of feels like if Arkansas wins, they probably are a top 4 seed locked up.
I think so.
They win that game. Possibly. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, that's a good one. Could have SEC Pitcher of the Year gets Player of the Year. Ellison gets Pickett, by the way.
Yep. By the way, two previous guests on the podcast.
Yeah, by the way, if you've noticed that, people, that's why I've been tweeting this out. You know, people that come on the show do very well. We
We've
try
had
to
players
do
of the, let's see, we had players of the year, we've had pitchers of the year, we've had coaching staffs of the year, we've had coaches of the year. We need to take like some time out of one of our live streams, Eric, just to showcase a list of guests and their accolades that they have garnered this year who have been on our show.
We try to get the big guests on the shows, and
That's what we do.
Nobody else can do it. All right,
that's what we do. ACC, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. If North Carolina can somehow knock off the Hokies, that's two birds. That's a 2-for-1 because you damage Virginia Tech's chance of possibly hosting and strengthen your resume at the same time.
Yeah, they beat Vot Tech. They're a lock to be in the tournament, and then you're right. That hurts Vot Tech's hosting big time. Yeah, agreed.
And yeah, in the Big Ten, we kind of highlighted it. Realistically, I think it's going to be Indiana, UCLA. Same reason. See reason I referenced for Virginia Tech and North Carolina. Indiana wins, they're a lock. They also damage UCLA's chance to be a top 8 national seed.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agree.
And in the Big 12.
Hey, what a great slate. We got a slate, all right? Yeah. We're going to start off with Oklahoma State, Arizona State. Do we get Kinsey Brown versus Ruby Malin part 2? I will be in person. Please, please. It's early in the morning, but I may not sleep because of that. Just thinking about that. That's going to be awesome. And it's going to be a good atmosphere with Cowgirl fans there. It's going to be interesting, though, how the Oklahoma media handles this because Oklahoma State is going to be playing. How weird is this, Vic? This is what realignment has done.
Yes.
2025. You have Oklahoma State and Oklahoma both playing at the same time in completely different conference tournaments.
Because that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Scott Van Pelt.
Oak State probably has to make a run, probably win the Big 12 to host at this point. We'll see, but they got to get through Arizona State first thing. That's going to be followed by Texas Tech, Baylor. And as I talked about while I was waiting for the Uber at the deal, what does Jerry Glasgow do? Does he throw Victor, let me ask you. If you're Jerry Glasgow, are you throwing Nyjah tomorrow, starting her to pitch, or do you start Chloe Rienceto and have Nyjah in relief against Baylor?
Start Rienceto and bring in Nyjah if you need to.
You got to win this game to make sure you're hosting. You got to make sure. I think to your point, I think he's going to – I think that's what you predict, what you said you would do, I think is what's going to happen. Which Texas Tech offense shows up? And Baylor, you kind of know Lily Walker is going to throw at some point because Lord knows she throws every game. Then UCF and Arizona. UCF won 2 out of 3. Now we'll see how Arizona comes. It's going to be – I can't believe I'm saying I'm going to cover a UCF-Arizona softball game in the Big 12 tournament, Victor. If I would have told 2005 Victor Anderson, if I go back to the weight machine, and Vic, 20 years from now, UCF will be playing Arizona in Oklahoma City at the home of the World Series in a Big 12 tournament quarterfinal game. What would 2005 Victor have said?
Because that makes a lot of sense.
That's exactly what I would have said.
Fair. But that's going to be a great matchup. And then obviously you got BYU, Iowa State, which I have a feeling could get crazy. Could get crazy.
Lots of cricket numbers is what you're saying, sir.
I'm just saying, remember last year I was there when Texas Tech and Iowa State played. Texas Tech came all the way back. Wyckoff hit the walk-off.
Oh, my God. Oh, wow, yes.
Whatever. That could be something goofy like that. Because I feel, granted, UCF got goofy at the end. I'm not going to, but I have a feeling we're due for we're going to have a goofy 7-inning game or longer. It's probably going to be Iowa State, BYU in a game that BYU must get. And Iowa State, they're trying to win a ticket to the automatic bid themselves. So I think the Big 12 is slated to be a great day. I think tomorrow, Thursday, you could argue is one of the most underrated days in college softball when you consider the power conferences and the rounds that they're in. You get everybody's playing. It's going to be wild. Folks, ESPN, please, can you do like a quad box? Can like something?
Yes. We need 7 innings with Chris Bunnan and Jen Schroeder.
Or hire
and,
Scott Hansen to do it. Hire us to do it. Hire Vic to do it. Vic will
Heck,
host.
why not? 7 hours of hit on
You would do it, right? You would do
first
it.
now.
Would you last 7 hours to host a show like that? Would you be able to host 7 hours like Scott Hansen does?
Give me some Diet Dr. Pepper, some Buc-ee's, and some gummy worms. I think I can manage.
Bobby, anybody has a recommendation what to order food at midnight here in Oklahoma City?
No.
No.
It's been a while since I've been there, so I don't know. And I don't know if you're staying at the same spot I stayed at. So, yeah.
In a very nice hotel. That's what I will say. I'm very happy where I'm at. It is close, like 5-10 minutes. But
by the way, Hero brings up a very fun point. ESPN app on your television allows the quad box. So
they do?
Yeah.
Thank you, Hero. You're literally a hero by saying Whataburger's open. I think we have our answer. Because that's going to be my dinner/breakfast. Because to Vic's point earlier, I have a quick.
Andrew Haynes chiming in. Good luck. Not much.
Man, Haynes, yeah. Hey,
yes, Mark.
We're gonna get Andrew. Vic, we got to get Andrew. Probably been our tradition. Get it on our podcast Sunday Night Reaction show. I'm curious how Athens is going, Andrew.
Yes, we will. Maybe that could be a guest we bring on for our podcast after the selection show.
Yeah, that could be what we do there. Wow, there you go. Whoa.
And yes, Mark, we are still on live at 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Now, seeing Scarlett's backing you up, Vic. Here, see, I'm scared. I would just throw Nyjah, but seeing Scarlett makes a good point, which I'm excited to see her seeing Scarlett. By the way, rumors, sources have told me seeing Scarlett will be in the building.
Hey, I mean, we love our fellow podcasters. Seeing Scarlett, we got 10-12 who was in the chat earlier this evening. So
did you have him on the show? You have Philip on the show?
We're saving Philip for our Friday bonanza. We're saving the guests for Friday.
Chloe picked the 7-inning shutout against Baylor in March in the matchup there, so they might go with that because they like the match.
Yeah,
it's a good call by seeing there.
It's gonna be.
All right, I think we've done enough. I know you've got a quick turnaround. I got a quick turnaround. Any other last thoughts here? We got to go over.
Make sure you get your caffeine ready, ladies and gentlemen, because we are going to be going live a lot, especially in the next few days. So let me show you the schedule one final time so you can notate your calendars accordingly. These are all tentative start times, Friday night and Saturday night. So keep that in mind. Follow us on our social media at Inner Circle SB for when we will likely go on the air. Saturday, that's going to be confirmed. 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's 9 a.m. for Mr. Lopez over in Oklahoma City. Hopefully, he will not have to worry about an expensive Uber ride with the Thunder being on the road for the Western Conference semifinals. And yeah. So that's going to be fun. And you guys, we are planning on working on some guests to join us on Friday night, to join us on Saturday morning. And when we go live on Saturday night, we'll work to have guests to join us as well, because that's what we want to give you. We want to give you the best because we're the best at doing it live.
Yeah, we have a good lineup there. And you play some of the interviews right during the show here that from Oklahoma City.
You
aired some of the interviews that we have.
Oh yes, I did air the Shaylin Govan interview that we had before we had on. Also, make sure you go on our Inner Circle YouTube channel. Eric has other interviews from Ashley from UCF's walk-off win versus Utah. Excuse me. It's a long night, I know. And of course, Eric's conversation after the BYU victory versus Houston. He'll have more content exclusively on our Inner Circle YouTube channel from Big 12 championships in Oklahoma City at Devon Park. So yes, we are ready to rock and roll. Eric, you're tired. I'm tired. You need to get some food. I need to get some sleep. So for Eric Lopez, I'm Victor Anderson. We appreciate all of you watching on stream tonight. If you want to get involved in StreamYard, there is a referral link down below that I'll be sharing with you right now. You can get a discount on being on StreamYard. $10 discount. Yeah, you start your streaming journey along the same way we've been doing with StreamYard since we started in the Circle Live. Be greatly appreciated. We will talk to y'all on Friday. Top podcast is out. Good night, everyone. And yeah, let's go get some sleep.